My name is MC Linda, and on this show today, I'm with Matthew and Ignatius, and we'll be talking about why the curriculum restructuring is important.
Show them how we do it.
Education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom. As scholars, we know that effective education structure and curriculum provides the teacher, the students, the school leaders, the community, and the stakeholders with a measured plan and structure for delivering quality education. So this will help to identify the learning outcome, the standard, and the core competencies that these students and the learners must demonstrate before advancing to the next level. But to be very basic is that there must be a pre-primary, there must be a compulsory primary, there must be a low secondary education, a upper secondary education, and a higher education. So during this process, a child or a youth or a student or a learner tends to form in his or her mind or senses what he or she would want to achieve or be in the future. This is just a little story to tell us what an education structure looks like and how it impacts on the society and what it entails. So during this process, we'll be talking about different problems and challenges which countries face as a result of their education structure and curriculum. Before we start to identify this problem and discuss about them, I would like to hear from our distinguished speakers on what their perspective on education structure and curriculum is. Thank you. Dr. Ignatius, you have the floor. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. First off, I'll give a definition, because that's what we do in academics, and a foundation for our discussion. So I would like to make an introduction into the understanding of what education structure is, the curriculum, and in general, education system. Okay, the education structure is a structure that is made up of different categories or different stages and different components, which allows a group of people or the group of population in a particular area to be educated and informed. So this whole structure comprises of the school itself, the teachers, the curriculum, the infrastructure, every other thing you can think about that enables a proper learning is all under the broad classification of an education system. And the states, in this particular situation, states represent the government. The government is responsible for the management and regularization of education of any place it finds itself or it controls. So that's how important the government is. And the government does this through what we call the Ministry of Education or any board that is being set aside to actually handle or supervise the activities of education in a particular territory. Having said that, the government also sets out the foundation and the development, the goal that they wish to achieve in education. So the educational development of a particular locality or a particular area is hinged on the decisions of the states. Like I said earlier, state here represents the government, which is responsible for the governance of a particular territory. So it is important that we all understand as individuals, as a body, as a collective union, the importance of either the state government, the federal government, or the government in general, the importance of their role in education. So if the government sets a very high standard for education, then the output will be a high standard of education. But if the government sets a very low standard of education, the outputs will be a low standard of education. So the goal is being set by the government, and the process of achieving it is these different tools that we are going to introduce or going to talk about. Of which one of those tools is the curriculum. The curriculum is actually very, very important, because without the curriculum, whatever goal that the government sets or the governing administration sets for education will not properly be achieved. So for education development and educational goals to be properly achieved, a good set of curriculum has to be developed, has to be designed, and has to be implemented for this goal to be achieved. So I think with time we'll get to know more and get to understand how this relates to individuals. And I also want to point out that it is a fundamental human right for every individual to have access to education. And the government, like I said, the state has to ensure that every individual gets this access or this right is achieved for every person. And if it is not achieved, it acts as a failure on the part of the government, because it should be provided for its citizens. If it's not provided for its citizens, it won't be something of good value for the society at large. So as we go further, we'll understand or we'll come to get the feeling of how education affects even those people that would think had nothing to do with education, and those people who think has all to do with education. We'll get to understand the relationship between the education in Nigeria and the education system in South Africa, the education system in China, and the education system all over the world in the West, East, South, North, and every other place. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So please, Dr. Matthew, can you also add your perspective on what education curriculum and structure is all about?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to appreciate you. Thanks so much once again for this privilege. So I'll be brief, and yours, Dr. Van has really delved in depth into those things, those components that needs to be mentioned. There is a statement he mentioned, he highlighted at that time that. So I'm just going to coin something from that, and that's it. You see, the concept of education itself on its entirety can be used to mirror each society. For example, if we collectively pick Africa or perhaps Nigeria as a society and compare it to maybe countries in the West, like in the US, you could see that there's a wide gap. And honestly, I must say, from a clear perspective, that the education really speaks. It gives a label how the entire society, looks like. So, but majorly, I would love to describe the structure aspect of education as a very wide entity, okay, that comprises of not just about the subjects. So it comprises of, like Mr. Ifeanyi mentioned, comprises of the infrastructure, comprises of management, it comprises of the curriculum, and all of these things, when you put it together, then you can evaluate the concept of education itself. So it's a whole lot of things bring together, that inform the kind of orientation that the society has. Let me land there.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting that we now know what the education structure and curriculum is all about. In the explanation by Dr. Matthew, he was able to compare USA and Nigeria, for example. I would want to take it that you are doing this comparison on the basis of one country is more developed than the other. So to drive our discussion home and to make it more specific, we will be using Africa as our continent of reference. So please, Dr. Ignatius, I would like to hear from you. What is the developing and underdeveloping countries doing wrong in the education, curriculum, and structure aspect?
Well, I don't know if I should say what they are doing wrong or what they are not doing at all. I think that's the concept I want to actually use, what they are not doing at all. Because I'm a big believer in systems and structures and all. I know many will clamor for a change of structure, a change of system and all. Why you asking or clamoring for a change of structure, a change of system? Have you utilized the structure or the system you've already have? Like, you've not utilized it properly. We have a system like how you kind of introduced, and during the course of getting prepared for this our discussion, I came to understand that basically the structure of education, structure here of education, it's actually almost the same across board in the entire 100 and something countries in the world. So it's not as if it's rocket science that it's so different. It's not really that different. It's just that in our own case, we used to have something like a 6-6-4 system of education, where we have the primary, the secondary, then and the university. Then I think as in 2004 or 2005, around then, it was restructured into the 9-3, then the 4. The 4 could be 5-6, depending on your studying the higher education, which the 9 is compulsory. That's where the human right comes into play. That everyone has a fundamental human right to be educated. So that 9 years of education has to be acquired by every citizen. The government has to enforce it. Like, it's compulsory. It's not like something that you can choose to or choose not to do. So it means that, like in developed countries, someone that finishes that 9 years is employable, at least, maybe not in the higher ends of the workforce, but at least something vocational, something that they can actually, maybe not going to universities, but going to technical colleges and vocational education. So in order not to digress so much, let me come back to your question, what we are doing wrong and the developed countries are doing right. I would say, like I said earlier, it's what we are not doing at all. We are not optimizing the system we already have. I know, not in this space currently, like discussing, but I know we've actually talked about this, the anxiety that comes with writing an exam. You know, when you place students on writing exams every 3 times in a year, from the age of 6 or 7 or 8, that is primary 1, primary 2, till when they get to JSS 3 and the excess classes, you place them on writing exam 3 times every year for different subjects. You're not like training them to be efficient, you are training them to be anxious. If you ask me, their training is based on anxiety, which is not really nice, it's not really good. And that comes with the optimization I'm talking about. Like, if I give an example of one of the countries that actually is being a light of good education system all over the world, is Finland, one of the Scandinavian countries. Their own system, students don't start writing exam up until when they are in the I think the 5th grade or the 6th grade, which is like JSS 1 in our own situation. They don't start written exams. And these guys are well prepared to take up life tasks that they actually learned in school. So the system, like, will dive into understanding properly how the curriculum actually affects the students or the education system. So what we are not doing in the African education system is we are not optimizing the structure we already have, and we're not properly optimizing the curriculum that we already have, which I would say needs a little adjustment in order not to have an anxiety-based education, but rather a development-based education. So I think I will end there. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question which I know some of the listeners might have this in mind to answer as well. If the junior secondary or primary students are not given examinations, how are we going to grade their ability to learn, or how are we going to measure the extent at which they have learned if no examination is given to them at the primary or early secondary school level?
Okay, thank you. I know Dr. Matthew will add a little answer to that also, but let me just stray a little from what I feel. First off, you know this slang already that examination is not a true test of knowledge. It's actually, it's debatable. You can actually sit down and debate it and talk about it. If I could use the Scandinavian country to actually make this example, their curriculum is set in a way that it is not actually a teacher-student's design. It's actually a teacher-student design. Like, the way it is designed, it's a singular. I don't know if I'm communicating. It's not like the teacher told the students. Yeah, one teacher might be teaching like 10 to 20 students, but the teaching structure is so designed in a way that it's individual, like it affects the student individually. So having made this foundational explanation, I would say the way their system is being designed, the curriculum encourages practical learning. what a curriculum is supposed to do in itself is to encourage, like we've already talked about educational structures now, and educational system, what it's to enable students to learn and be informed. It's now a tool to actually pass this information to the students. That's the first part. And the second part is to help the teachers to design a system that will help them teach the students properly and optimally. So if I use an example of a classical Western society, is that they do what we call a practical education, in the sense that they do debates. In primary school in Nigeria, I don't know if we do debates. Debates are very, very important. Debate discussions are very, very important. Even presidential elections, political appointments, and every political elective positions require debates. You have to debate, you have to pass your idea. Like what we are doing is a subclass of debate. We are talking, we are having a conversation. These are practical things that can be used to grade. So if the teacher teaches about having a debate or having a conversation in class and sets a little lesson to actually have a debate in class, and he or she as a teacher knows who is doing well and who is not doing well, when it definitely it's implicit, he or she will now vent the students and now actually know how to actually meet the requirement of that particular student. That's why I said it's a teacher student, not teacher students, sort of. You understand? It's individual. That's one example. Another example is writing summaries. We know this, it's normal. They bring a book report or a book chapter or a text or a novel, and everyone reads it and writes a report about it. Those things are taken into consideration. And know where the student is not doing well, you grade them B+, A+, those sort of grades. And when they're not doing well, you give them extra lessons on it and a little, more explanation to read than subjecting them, teaching them rigorous, theories and everything without practical implementation in the real world. Like I said, conversations, debates are practical implementations in the real world. And we have it. You have those stuff in linguistics. You have those stuff in literature. Having a book report is a practical implementation in the real world. And we have all those things in lessons also. Let me not keep going on and on. I guess I've passed the message across, because it's actually very important that the curriculum is designed to help the student, not to keep up a face that we are doing something. You are pushing the weight of learning on the students instead of shouldering the weight and properly transmitting it to the students to learn properly in a very conducive atmosphere that will enable them build the foundation that will help them in life later on. There are a lot of school dropouts in the West, but those school dropouts, many of them can speak proper English, can make good vocabulary construction, can actually write a good book report, not as wonderful as someone that went for higher education, but they have the basics. They can do debates and everything. They have all the basics. They do sports. They are good at it. They can learn different languages. There's no distinction between science class and, you need a grade in science, you need a grade in arts, you need a grade in sports to pass, to move to the next class. You understand? But not an exam sort of grade. But like, you are improving in your skills, you're improving in your academics, your learning, not passing exams and being an anxiety student just to get to primary 2 or primary 3. Then you take this anxiety to the university, then you start cheating just to pass the next exam without developing any skill. So that's just it. So we are undoing a lot of things. We need to start doing something. We need to optimize our curriculum for the betterment of the student, rather than keeping up face that we are doing something in education. Yeah, thank you.
That's so interesting.
Show them how we do it. Hey, show them how we do it.